This video contains spoilers for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1. Hello everyone, and welcome to Marvel Lookback, where we look at Marvel movies and shows. Today, we are talking about the latest from Spidey, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. In case you don't know, I am a huge fan of Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2 and Into the Spider-Verse are some of my favorite movies. Peter Parker is one of my favorite fictional characters, and my dresser looks like this. And I have done lookbacks for the Raimi trilogy and Homecoming, which you could check out here. I am always excited about a new Spider-Man project, except you. So I was looking forward to this show. What surprised me about this show was how well it developed its characters. Peter is still good old Peter Parker, but they introduce a new cast of characters and get you to care about them. And when they do bring in familiar characters, like a Harry Osborn, it is a new twist on the character while keeping the spirit of the character. However, the character work that impressed me most was the villains. I enjoyed how this show knows that we know who Norman Osborn is, yet it kept me guessing throughout the season if he would be the Norman we know and hate. But by the time we get to episode 9, yeah, it's made clear who he really is. And I did notice that Norman had the glider, so the tease is there. In that case, this may be set for one of the best Norman Osborn to Green Goblin transformations yet. I also liked the rivalry between Dr. Octavius and Norman Osborn. Octavius has good motives for his opposition, as Norman used Peter to steal his resources. And I loved Norman's twist on the famous quote, "With great power comes great responsibility," to "With great power comes great respect." And ultimately, in the fight with the Scorpion, Peter realizes that he must choose responsibility over power. In a way, putting responsibility first earns genuine respect. I once saw a video about how Spider-Man holds back from his enemies. He could be invincible, but that's where with great power comes great responsibility comes in. Peter chooses to hold back, and that's what makes him the hero. So, I love how the show incorporated that idea into this season's story. But the unexpected MVP of this season for me was Lonnie Lincoln, aka Tombstone. I had only seen Tombstone in Spectacular Spider-Man and Spider-Verse, and in both those projects, he's really a glorified henchman. So, I never really cared for the character. Then came this show. Lonnie's character work is excellent. He already starts out as a character of subversion, as when we first meet him, you kind of expect the jock bully character, but no, he is really a nice, cool guy who forms a friendship with Peter. We witness Lonnie's social and personal life and come to care about him, before he goes down the path that turns Lonnie Lincoln into Tombstone. Like the best Spider-Man villains, Lonnie starts with good intentions before going bad. And that's how this series was able to take a C-tier Spider-Man villain and give him depth. I cannot wait to see where the character goes in future seasons. I've seen some who didn't care for the animation, but I liked it for the most part. Even if, sure, some scenes do look a little Mike Huckabee's Learner History-y. Did anyone else watch that show? They were going for a classic 1960s Steve Ditko comic era look, and it is cool to see that style comics come to life in animation. It's not Into the Spider-Verse comic book animation, but it's probably not fair to compare it to that. So the animation didn't bother me personally. This show kind of feels like a spiritual successor to The Spectacular Spider-Man, in that both shows people didn't like it at first because of animation style, only to fall in love with it because of the characters and comic connections. By the way, I found the intro for this show to be one of the coolest animated intros in recent years. It's a mix of old and new, with the remix of the classic Spider-Man theme song, showcasing all the characters, all building up to creating a new comic book cover in each episode. And it's also neat how they keep the comic bookiness with things like panels during fight scenes. Also, I'm not a binger, but this show would make for a good binge. They do a good job at having complete episodes, but still leaving you with a hook to make you want to watch the next episode. Okay, now for the elephant in the room. This show initially started as an MCU show, originally being a Tom Holland Spider-Man origin before Homecoming, until the creators decided to break away from the main MCU timeline to form the show into its own thing. I do think that was a wise choice, as I remember seeing concept art for Norman Osborn in the show and thinking, cool, but why wasn't Osborn mentioned the MCU then if he was there before Homecoming? So, despite admittedly missing the potential of a proper MCU Spider-Man origin, giving the creators more creative freedom made sense to me. But then I think in the actual show they kinda settled on a middle ground, in that the series implies being in the MCU, but in an alternate universe with similar events to the MCU Spidey in a very what if kind of way. The Watcher even makes an appearance. So could this show take place in the what if universe? And the show still makes references and even brings in characters from the known MCU universe. I get what they were going for, but for the most part, I think the references and leftover ideas were distracting. Daredevil is my one exception, as I think he fits here. Reminds me when Daredevil and Spider-Man interacted in the comics. I wish they did more with him, TBH. I feel like if they wanted the show to be its own thing, they should have committed to that. Then the show really could have found its own complete identity. But hey, then I guess the MCU fans would not have watched a show if it was just a regular Spider-Man cartoon.
Got a problem with cartoons?
I will say though, it was neat how the designs for familiar heroes like Doctor Strange and Iron Man are a mashup of the MCU and the comics. A few more mixed aspects of the season for me. I liked seeing more inside Oscorp and the characters within it earlier in the season. However, the other interns alongside Peter did seem sidelined and their characters didn't do much for me. But then again, the focus was more on Peter, Lonnie, Nico, and the Osborns, so I'm not sure how much more we could have done with 3 more characters. Maybe they have plans for them in later seasons. And I kinda didn't love the final episode. I felt the season really came to a nice end with the defeat of the Scorpion. And they try to create an answer for where the radioactive spider that bit Peter came from by having Peter become Spider-Man from his future self with Doctor Strange time travel. Among this, Across the Spider-Verse and Amazing Spider-Man 2, it does seem like more Spider-Man media is playing with this idea of creating an kind of origin for the origin, but I personally don't really care for that. A person gets bitten by a radioactive spider and gains superpowers. That's all I need. Don't overcomplicate it. Things that are supposed to happen always find a way to happen is a nice quote, but I personally prefer when anybody could have been bitten by a spider and become Spider-Man. And some of the final episode did feel a little like they were setting too much more for future seasons when I feel like they sprinkled enough throughout. That said, I did not see that Richard Parker reveal coming at the end though. I already want to know more about Richard and what happened to him. And he's voiced by Josh Keaton? That's cool. Overall, I really enjoyed this series. It can be familiar, perhaps to a fault with the MCU references, yet it still delivers fun action, great character development, and it leaves you wanting more. They've already confirmed at least 2 more seasons for this show, and I am down for it. And I would give Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man an 8 out of 10. But what did you think of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. And be sure to subscribe for more future videos. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time,